Well, all right. Yeah. You know, ever since I turned pro in 1989, when I found that dotted line, it was strange. Some things changed for the better and for the worse. So I called my mama and she said, baby, got to be, 'cause I can see the women who are afraid. People I never thought I'd every day around me. My hair is done, nothing else too. They cut me down, I don't know what's wrong. Turning down my skin. Memories, different as I fly. I'm living life, you know I can't deny. My cup's a big, and I'm with my lady friend. My cup is full, my home is making it. Good morning. It's so tough. Black lights on the dance floor. The DJ is running as I make my intro. Listen fresh, know where to find the sea. Look at the memory, cause that's just the day I got so much joy. Little mention on my leg. Oh, you can visit my neighbors can't stand. The way I live is all so bad. They got your ladies all that the same. It's so wrong. No, I can't go wrong. Keep it hot till daylight. Keep it moving all through the night. I'll keep it hot till daylight. Keep it moving all through the night. The first thing people say is, that money changes. Let money change you. Don't let money change you. Because person don't change my head. My phone number, my control. Hey, my snakeskin shoes gonna change. Hey, my library card gonna change into credit cards. You know what I'm saying? What is it?
Yes, 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 yes. You are listening to Community Voices, where we are actually not live on KABF 88.3 FM, but this is a pre recorded show. That means that the phone lines are not open. The phone lines are not open because this is a pre recorded show of Community Voices right here. 9 o'clock a.m. is when we get started on the air. And I am your host, the Reverend. You could just call me Denise, having this conversation with you right here from my own house. And I feel like I've done, oh, wait, don't let me get, I almost lost myself. Let me pause for the cause, which is you. I want to make sure that I always am reminded to let you know that we are grateful. We are grateful for your presence in this space. We are grateful for the many ways that you show up. The way that you show up calling me on the phone on a Sunday afternoon so you could just chat it up. calling me on the phone to make sure that I've paid attention to your text messages and your Facebook messages, making sure that I've ordered the books that you told me to order, wanting to have conversation about the events that are going on. Like, I just love how connected we are as a result of this radio station. So it's not just me though, right? KBF 88.3 FM is live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There is something for you. You can hear all kinds of music. You can hear all kinds of voices. You can be in tune with all kinds of things because KABF exists, and it exists because of you. And I just want to make sure that I remind you of how grateful we are for you, how much you mean to us, and how much community how important community is in moving us forward for this struggle that we continue to fight for collective liberation. So thank you all so much for being here. But I just want to remind you again that the phone lines are not open because this is a pre-recorded show. I do want you to know that I've heard from Hotep's sister. She sent me a text and told me that Hotep is going to be in the hospital. He's in the VA. He'll be there all of next week, this week. And I have asked her if he is willing to have guests and visitors, because I don't think that we should take it for granted that folks want us to come and bust up in their hospital room. But if I don't hear from her, that's what I'm going to do, because I want to put my hand. I'm like the old people. I need to lay eyes on you. I need to know that you're okay. So I do want you all to know, because we have been asking about him, and she did reach out to say he is in the VA. He should be there all week long. So that is the update on Hotep. I want to make sure I say that. I don't really have any announcements other than the fact that I'm probably not doing this video the justice that it deserves, because as we were listening to the song, and this was Deion Sanders, Must Be the Money, we're gonna source our conversation in Deion Sanders' song, Must Be the Money. And as I was looking at, I'm looking at y'all, and I know y'all can see my eyes, like, what is happening right now? Like, what are we listening to? But then I thought, oh, I probably should have played the video for those of you who are watching on Facebook. And I was like, oh my goodness, how do I do that? And so I got to get more savvy with trying to figure out the nuances of recording my voice and the video and the song. Like, I've got 3 different devices trying to work it out. So I just got to get better. But I wish you could see this video, but y'all can look it up on YouTube. That's where I found it. Deion Sanders, Must Be the Money. And we're going to use that song to propel our conversation forward today as we talk about, we're just going to talk about this Black man. That's what we're going to talk about, this Black man. But before we do that, let me give you the tidbit for today, the EJI tidbit for today. Oh, I guess I could tell you, Tony is back from Brazil, and I'm sure that he could have handled the show for me on his own, but I didn't want him to. And so that's why I'm recording it all by myself, because I'm at the hospital with my mom, and maybe we'll talk about that in just a minute. But let me give you the EJI tidbit for September 26th, 1963. September 26th, 1963. The Alabama Supreme Court upholds contempt conviction against Mary Hamilton for not responding when a prosecutor used her first name but called white people Mrs. or Mr. In 1963, on September 26th, the Alabama Supreme Court, this is the highest court in the Alabama land, upholds the contempt conviction against Mary Hamilton for not responding when a prosecutor used her first name but called white people Mrs. or Mr. So for this Black woman to dare to demand that she be treated not better than, Not in a way that would give her some kind of advantage, not more favorably, but just demand that she be treated the same as. Okay? If you're going to call the white people Mr. and Mrs., then you're going to call me Mrs. I mean, like, what's hard about that? And so for her to, first of all, suffer that indignity, right? Then for her to be held in contempt of court because they're saying, well, you didn't respond. Because, in the court of law, when a prosecutor asks you a question, when the defense attorney asks you a question, when anybody asks you a question, the judge, the attorneys, then you are supposed to answer. Like, that's just the way that it works. But she refused to answer because she noticed the difference in the way that she was being treated. And she said, no, if you're going to do this for them, they are white. If you're going to do it for them, then I deserve the same treatment. Not because I'm black, not because they're white, but because we are all human. And as humans, we want to be treated. We should be treated. We demand to be treated as humans should be treated. So dignify me, recognize me, see me for the Mrs. that I am in this space, the same way that you see them. And so she demanded that. And then she had to file a suit. And the suit had to work its way up. You don't just start at the Supreme Court. You got to work your way. It has to work its way through the court system to get to the Supreme Court. So she takes it all the way to the top. And the top court said, no, she is in contempt because she should have answered. Even though she was being treated unfairly and unjustly, and it was clearly discriminatory, the highest court in the land ruled against her because all she asked was that you treat me the same way. That's all. Honor my humanity. That's it. How hard is that? And I've been listening to lots of conversations around Deion Sanders. I've been reading lots of articles. I've been doing a lot of research about this man. And one of the things that I heard a commentator say, a digital creator, Roland Martin, I think it was him. You know what? I really should not call a name because all these conversations are kind of running together. But one of them said, or maybe it was a woman. It was a Black woman talking about how we consistently have to ask for our humanity to be respected, to be seen, to be honored, to be celebrated. Like we have to consistently say, do you not realize that you are in the presence of a human? Who do you think you're talking to? Who do you think I am? What do you think I am? Like that shouldn't even be a conversation, especially not in 2023. But we see this happening in 1963, which wasn't very long ago because my oldest brother, the oldest of the Daniel children, is 60. He just turned 60 this year on August 29th. He was born August 29th in the year 1963. So we're just talking 60 years ago, people. And so we haven't made that much change. We have changed, that is true, but we haven't made much progress at all as it relates to race relations. In fact, we're going backwards. And so I wanted to bring that up because I want to talk about Deion Sanders, but I want to talk about him in a way that doesn't just highlight the way white folks respond to our Blackness, but also the way Black folks respond to our Blackness, right? Like we have to have these, I tell people a lot that I'm having simultaneous conversations, right? I got to be talking to white folks and I got to be talking to Black. It's all these conversations and Black and white folks need to be talking to each other. And I'm using white as white to mean anybody who's non-Black. Right. So if you are not Black, then I'm putting you in the white category. Is that fair? I don't think so. But that's just the way it is in this moment, especially since that's what we seem to do. We just kind of lump everybody into these categories of either you have melanin or you don't. Right. And so then I can hear the brown people say, wait a minute, I got melanin. Yeah, I know you do. But I'm talking about whiteness in this sense, people who are just Black and white, just making it a Black and white conversation. So find yourself. However you identify as melanated, you can find yourself in the group of people that I'm calling Black. If you are non-melanated, you can find yourself in the group of people I'm calling white. Or even if you have melanin, if you better identify in your own body with people who are white, do that. Be who you are. That's what I'm fighting for, the freedom for you to be who you are, and for the freedom for us to talk about it, to challenge it, to expose it, to push back on it. And so I'm fighting for the freedom of all of that. So however you choose to identify, I want to talk about Deion Sanders and these conversations around Blackness. Now that he has entered this space in the PWI, predominantly white institution, after having left the HBCU, the historically Black university. HBCU stands for Historically Black College or University in Jackson State, has become a university. So he left the historically Black university, Jackson State University, to become the coach at the predominantly white institution, the PWI. And I just want to brag on my family for just a moment. I am so excited to be able to say that every member of my family graduated what is now Jackson State University. My mom and my father, they actually were students when it was Jackson State College. So when it was a historically Black college, they were students there. And my father was on the championship team. He played football. My mother was a J-set. So we have a history in our family. I have an uncle who twirled the baton for the J-sets. He led them in. I also have a brother, the older brother that I was just talking about, Derek. He was the head drum major at Jackson State, the sonic boom, bump, 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 bump. Nothing. It's just, you can't do. I'm talking about. I love to be in the stadium when they hit the field. The band hits the field. The sonic boom of the South. And then my brother Dwayne also played baseball for Jackson State. So we have a long history of being intellectually connected to and engaged with Jackson State, as well as with our extracurriculars as well, because I was not in the band and I did not play a sport, but I was a model. I was a professional model when I was a student at Jackson State. So even with our extracurriculars, we were entangled all up and through there at Jackson State University. And my brother Dwayne, who is the girls varsity head coach now at a Christian school. I don't even know the name of that Christian school. He just started there, I think, a couple of years ago. But he lives in Fort Myers, which is where Deion Sanders was born. So all these little connections that I've found as I was having this conversation. So I've been hearing about and knowing of Deion Sanders for quite some time. But my older brother, Derek, called me the other day and he said he wanted to know what my audience, what the listeners of KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people, what the listeners think about Deion Sanders and the news. And I honestly didn't know what he was talking about, because all I can remember is he left JSU. That's all I was thinking about. You mean because he left Jackson State and went to Colorado? He was like, that is so old. I was like, because he won like the first game? He's like, that is so old. I'm like, well, what are we talking about? And so Deion Sanders was just the furthest thing from my mind, not interested in it at all. But because my brother did what most of you do, you say, hey, I want you to think about this. I want you to comment on this. I want you to raise it up for consideration, and let's see what the people have to say. So I said, okay, let me do some research about Deion Sanders. So I found that song. That's Deion Sanders, Must Be the Money, that was released on MC Hammer's label. Back in the day, and the album did not chart, so it did not do very well at all. And listening to it, you can kind of a little bit tell why, right? Like, Deion, what is you doing? This is not your lane, boo boo. This is not your lane. You can do a whole bunch of stuff, but this is not your lane. And we need people to tell us that from time to time. I remember when I was gearing up to do my first sermon. What do we call that sermon? I can't even remember what we call the summer, but when you believe that God has called you to ministry, and then you've got to do that first sermon in front of the people, and the people are supposed to affirm your gift. The people are supposed to, and I don't, maybe it's not like this in every church, but at the time I was at an African Methodist Episcopal church. I had left an African Methodist Episcopal Zion church, and it was the same process where you stand up before the people and you preach your trial sermon. That's what it's called, your trial sermon. And then the people will decide whether or not they believe that God has gifted you to be in this space as minister. And one of the things that happened was that no one was ever told no. Like no one was ever, no one's gift was ever challenged in the space. So if you said that the Lord called you, we were just like, oh, okay, like who are we? How do we know? And so we did not do our job as a congregation to say to some people, I don't believe God called you. I do believe God delivered you, because that's what happens to a lot of people. We are at the lowest point of our lives. Something has happened. We've lost somebody, or we've lost a job, or we've lost our livelihood, or we've lost our minds, or we've lost our boyfriends, our partners. We've lost something. Or we just find ourselves in these dire straits. We don't know how we're going to make the ends meet. We don't know how we're going to raise these children or feed these children. So we're in the thick of things, and life is happening to us in such a way that it's so overwhelming that we give ourselves over. We surrender in that moment to God. And we believe that we can feel the very presence of God lifting us up out of the muck and the mire that this life has us rooted and grounded in. In this moment, we feel like we're sinking like quicksand, like we cannot get out. But then we feel the power of the Spirit. And in that moment, we believe that God says, come preach. When really God says, get up. Okay? Let me help you out. Hey, let me clean you up. Let me do whatever it is that you're asking me to do. Let me come and do that for you. That's what God says. And then you take that as license to go and start a church. So I believe, so we do people a disservice by not saying that, by saying, no, that's not what I believe God is calling you to do. Because that's what community is for, to hold each other accountable and to hold each other responsible. So in this church and in all the churches that I've been in, I've never seen them say to a person, nah, I don't think you should preach. And so I was doing my trial sermon, and this was, my gifts were affirmed, like, because everybody's out. I'm just gonna be honest, because everybody's out. Like, what they gonna say to me? And in doing so, now being on this side of being a pastor, now I know how important it is for us to just be honest with people. So somebody should have said to Deion, I believe that God is using you. I believe that there is a space for you. I believe that you are great and wonderful and mighty and holy and sacred. But that's not what happened. So he's singing this song, Must Be the Money, and the root of the gist of the song is that people are responding to him differently because of the success that he has had or continues to have on the field. And so we know that Deion Sanders he played multiple sports. At one point, he was he ran track, he also played baseball, and he also played football. And there was one time when he was like playing in different sports in different places. They were flying him here so he can play in this game. And he's the only person who has won, like, World Series. So we got baseball, and he's also won the Super Bowl with football. So he is an enigma. He's mysterious. Like, how is this possible? So he has this history of success, both in baseball and in football, but the majority of his success has been in football. And so we see him now being the coach of Colorado Buffaloes at this predominantly white institution. And so I felt some kind of way when he came to Jackson State, because I was trying to figure out what would cause him to make that move. I know that Jackson State could not possibly pay him what he would want or what he would ask, because he was also an NFL analyst, and he ended up losing one of his jobs because he was demanding to be paid the highest of all analysts, and they told him absolutely not. And so they did not negotiate that contract, and he was gone. And so I'm thinking, now what made Deion Sanders come to Jackson State University? Like, what is I want to pay attention to this. Like, I want to watch it. And so I was really interested in that. And then when he did come to Jackson, we were talking about where he was living, like the area in Jackson where he chose to live and all of the amenities that his house has. So of course, people are having conversation about that. Look, he's got this swim pool. Look, he's got this, he's got that. I think my mom and I even drove by there. We were like, is that it? Is that it? And so we were having all of these conversations about what could possibly make him make this move. And so he comes to Jackson State, which is huge for us, right? Like this is huge because we know that his notoriety, his success, his talent, his gifts, that this is going to be great for Jackson State. And it's going to be great for the historically Black university. And in drawing attention, is drawing money. Like it's just going to be good. And so we were watching this. And then it's 2 years later and he's gone. Like the first offer that he's made that he wants to capitalize off of, he says yes. And lots of people had something to say about that. This Black man who's the president of a historically Black college in, I want to say Nebraska. No, in Kentucky, had plenty to say about how Deion Sanders took this opportunity to go to the predominantly white institution because in Deion Sanders' mind, this was an elevation. He was being elevated to go from the HBCU to the PWI, from the historically Black university to the predominantly white institution. This is an elevation. And so this Black college president says, wait a minute, listen to your language. What are you saying? Are you saying then that somehow predominantly white institutions are superior? They are higher. They are better. And so then what does that mean about where you're leaving this historically Black university? Like, you're giving us some insight into how you feel about your own Blackness. And so let's talk about that for a minute. And so people were pushing back on him because he said that he wanted Deion to fail. And later on, he clarified his statement saying, well, what I really want to fail is this ideology. This ideology that in order for you to be the best, you got to go with the white folks. Like, that's what I want to fail because if we are holding him up as a model, and this is his way of thinking that the only way that I can be the best is if I align myself with whiteness, then I need that to fail. And I need all of us to see it fail, because if that is your thinking, you need to fail too. Because we have got to get to the point where we celebrate Blackness at all times without giving ourselves over to the anti-Black space just because it's beneficial for us. And so people were saying, well, like, you would have taken the job too if he was going to let you, if he was going to give you more money. Now you have time with your children, whatever the argument is. And I think that, and I want to say, no, I don't think that all of us would have taken the job just because it's more money. Or is that what we are motivated by? It's so easy to buy us. We keep talking about, as Black folks, we keep talking about how we want people to remember the trauma and the horror of the system of enslavement, where they were auctioning our bodies off, they were commodifying us and making money off of us. And we want reparations. We want to make sure that we talk about how unjust that was and how traumatic and how awful and how evil it was. And then we sell ourselves off to the highest bidder ourselves. It's like, wait, what now? And so he's singing this song about it must be the money. And he's saying that people are responding to me differently because I have money. This money sets me apart. It makes people look twice. It gives me the upper hand. It allows me to have, if you look at the lyrics, he's talking about how he's got more than one woman. He's got these gators and he got this gold. Like, all of this materialism is made possible by the money. And that allows him to become a different person. And so he's trying to say at one point in the song, it's like, no, don't let yourselves get caught up in the money. But then he says, but I'm going to let it change me. I'm going to allow this money to change me. And that is what we see happening with his move to Colorado. Not necessarily changing him, because I'm pretty sure that Deion Sanders was bold and confident and cocky and conceited before he got to Colorado. So this flashiness, this brazenness that we see in his personality, this is not new. So I don't think that this money going to Colorado State has changed him in that way. But we do know that the money is changing for Colorado. We do know that we now have the facts, the financial statistics, the economic resources are changing around the game of football in Colorado. And it is due 100% to, it is directly related to, you can see the correlation, you can connect the dots of how it is related to Deion Sanders and his performance now as the head coach for the Colorado Buffaloes. I am going to have to stop this recording for just a minute so that I can make it easier for Mr. Russell to stream this, and then I'll be right back. But I'm really not going anywhere. I'm just going to press a button and then I'm going to press it again. But first, let me give kudos to Mr. Russell. Ooh, ooh. I don't think I've done my happy dance in a while. Mr. Russell is our engineer here at KBF 88.3 FM, always making it happen, always fixing it, always showing up, always. You can call him anytime, day or night, and he's gonna do his best to make it happen. And so I want to say thank you to Mr. Russell for being who he is, this Black man engineer, making it happen right here at KABF 88.3 FM, where we are the voice of the people. And so I told y'all all I had to do was just press a button. And so we're talking about Deion Sanders, and we're talking about this move that he has made from Jackson State University to the Colorado Buffaloes, and the impact that it's having on Blackness across the world. And so you've got this white man. Oh my goodness, I can't think of his name. Y'all tell me his name. Send me a text, area code 228-236-7440, 228-236-7440. You can hit me up on Facebook. All of the different ways that you get in touch with me. Let me know what the white man's name is. But he lost his job because basically what he said was, look, you can't be letting these Black people coach. Man, you let them coach, they're gonna take over. Like that was that. We were retaining those positions for us white people. Like you cannot give them, these are our coveted spaces. Like we already got the team is Black. So we want to keep these spaces for ourselves. And he ended up losing his job for saying that. And so here we have Deion Sanders still being his same brash and cocky and conceited self, his personality, but now doing it at this predominantly white institution, which is causing there to be more conversation around who he is, this Blackness showing up in this space, because so far Deion Sanders has chosen not to code switch. And code switch is what many of us do when we are in the presence of Black folks. We have this language that we use. We have this behavior that we demonstrate. We have this way of being together. But as soon as someone white shows up in the space, if they infiltrate the space, or if they just happen to be sharing the space, it doesn't always have to be something that's doesn't always have to be confrontational, but they just show up in the space, then our language changes. We begin to talk differently. We won't use, if we were using profanity, then we won't use profanity. We kind of straighten up and we get ourselves together because somebody white has come in. And so we're switching codes. We're going from the way we are when we're together to the way we've been taught and conditioned and programmed to be when they are around. And so this code switching happens throughout our lives. Many of us do it on a regular basis. Many of us do it on a regular basis. I mean, when I say regular basis, I'm talking about every day. We can be on the phone in the car talking to our people, and then as soon as we walk through the door and there are white people in the office, then we begin to use a different way, a different tone. My mama used to do it, y'all. My mama would be going off about something. Generally, she would be going off about something that she should not have to tell us to do more than once. Because I don't know how it is in in other people's homes, but people in my home, my mom and dad did not repeat themselves. If they told you to do something, then you were gonna do it like right now. Like there's I don't understand. I don't understand some relationships. Like there's no question, there's no talk back, there's no reluctance, there's no long look on your face. There's if she says do something, then you do it. And so she probably told us to get, said, come in here and get this bag off the floor. And it's probably taking me too long. And so she was like, when I tell you to do, I know I'm not, I bet not. Right. And then the phone would ring and she'd be like, I bet not. Hello. We were looking like, what? And many people thought that my mother was white because of the way that she sounded on the phone. But all of us knew, listening to her, all of us knew. So code switching is just something that is a part of the Black experience. And so for when prime time, that's what we call Deion Sanders, he's got that name from his friend way back in the day. When prime time, our coach Prime is what he's called as a coach. When he was at Jackson State and he's being flashy with his shades and his hat and all of that. Nobody said anything. Nobody said anything. When he's talking all big about what he's going to do, nobody said anything. Nothing. But now when he's in this white space, being his same Black self, now there's so much attention on him. So many lights are shining brightly on his behavior. And it's not just white people who are talking about it, which is my point. It's Black people saying, because it was the Black coach, the Colorado State coach, Norvell, says, my mama taught me that when you talk to grown folks, you should take your hat and your shades off. And so Norvell plays into this respectability politics. But not only does he play into the respectability politics, because when he said that, the white man that was interviewing him and the room full of white folks and Black folks began to clap, right? Like, yes, that's right. You scold that Black man and you teach him how he ought to act around us. You teach him how he's supposed to present himself around us. You let him know. You don't just come in here acting Black. You don't just come in here looking Black. You come in here getting closer and closer, as close as you can possibly be to whiteness. That means that you got to stop all this Black stuff and get close to us. And Norvell plays into it, but that's not all he does. By saying that my mama taught me, my Black mama taught me, what you're also saying is that his Black mama didn't teach him. So now you're talking about his mama. And the way I look at it, you're talking about my mama. Because I really do believe in the spirit of Sawubona. Sawubona that says to us, we are one, we are human. You don't get to talk about anybody's mama. And you definitely don't get to talk about the Black mama. How dare you suggest that this Black mama didn't raise her son right because he refuses to code switch? How dare you suggest that the Black people who would dare to embody their Blackness, who will dare not be denied the expression of their Black, how dare you say that our mamas didn't teach us? Well, if we go talk about somebody, mama, it seemed like we would talk about yours, because your mama still has you thinking that if I act a certain way, if I look a certain way, if I show the best teeth, if I take off my shades, if I take off my hat, if I put on my whatever it is your mama has taught you that makes you think that the only way that you can be somebody is to get as close to whiteness as possible. Perhaps that's the mama we ought to call into question. But I ain't gonna talk about nobody's mama. I'm just saying perhaps, maybe. But what about us? When we're grown now. So it's not about what my mama did or didn't teach me. It's what am I teaching myself? When I see a Black man, whatever moves he's chosen to make in his life, he's chosen to be the head coach of this predominantly white institution for whatever reasons that he has. And I'm sure he has plenty of them. I have not asked him, so I do not know. And I'm really not following this closely enough because I do not care. But whatever it is, we are watching him succeed. We are watching him do great things in football. Can we just celebrate that? Can we just root for the football team? Yes, we can have conversations about Blackness at the same time, absolutely. But we're not going to tear him down because he is not being white enough for us as Black folks. Are you listening to me? This is us talking. Like, wait, he said what? And so you have all of these comments, all of this Black Twitter, you have all of these Facebook posts, like all of these people who are talking about the need for Coach Prime to be more respectable. And I just want to make sure that I say very clearly that you can be as respectable as you want to be. You still Black in an anti-Black world. And so the answer to our challenges is not to attack each other for being too Black. It's to challenge each other to be more Black. Because what we have to do is live into the divine essence of our Blackness, however that is demonstrated. However, we ought to be proud of the way that we talk. I know I'm not the only one who can be listening to a TV show and not even looking at it. But when a person opens their mouth, I can say without even turning my head that that person right there is Black. I can. Don't get me wrong. Some of us can fool each other. We know that because of respectability politics. We've been taught how to say and what to say. So I know that there are those of us who can fool folks. But you can't tell me that you don't recognize the difference in the timbre of the voice. It's something about our tone. It's something about the way that we put our words together. It's something about that lived experience of being Black. It shows up even in how we talk, even in the sound of our voice, and it sets us apart, not as better and certainly not as worse, but as Black. And we ought to celebrate that. And yes, that's coming from someone who was taught to enunciate. I was taught to get a command of the King's English. I was taught to make sure I did not. My mom and I were just talking about this 2 days ago. When did we go to the hospital? We went to the hospital. I done got hot up in here. We went to the hospital Thursday. Went to the hospital Thursday. What were we talking about? We were in the car. Oh, we were reminiscing about my cousin that I used to keep. His mother went to Desert Storm. And so she asked my mom to keep her son on the weekends while she was away. And so every weekend we kept him, and then we would keep him, it got to the point where we would keep him a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more. And people, it was a whole scandal because folks were, especially people at church, were saying it was my baby and I had gotten pregnant, had a baby out of wedlock. Oh my goodness, just the way that we are with people. But this was my cousin, my first cousin, and he's just like me. And I probably taught him this bad habit, but he loves potato chips. That's my Achilles heel, potato chips. And he would say, "Give me some taste chips. I want some taste chips." And my mother had me practicing with him to get him to say potato chips. And so we would have these sessions where we would say potato chips, potato chips, potato chips, potato chips. Because I was not allowed to give him the potato chips if he called them tater chips. I didn't withhold them, like punish him. I just held on to them a little longer until he said potato chips. And so my mother was like, "Wow, why did I do that?" I said, "You did not allow us to use what we consider to be broken English, where your subjects and your verbs don't agree, because your subjects and your verbs have number. They're either singular and plural, and they are supposed to agree. So if you use a singular subject, you got to use a singular verb. And there's a difference between the way that they look, because singular subjects do not have S on them, but singular verbs do. And so we have, this was the way that it was in my house. So you did not use an English that was not considered to be standard. Not in my home." And she would correct you every time. And it didn't matter who you were, anybody's child who was in our house, you had to speak that way in the house. Now you can talk however you want to talk at your house. You can talk however you want to talk in the street. But if you were under our roof at 1450 Brinkley Drive, then you had to speak correct English. So I know what it's like. to be articulate. I know what it's like to make sure that when you open your mouth, just the fact that you know how to speak commands attention, especially for them white folks, because many white people, the system of whiteness has fooled people into believing that black folk don't even know how to talk. So when you hear a black person speaking English where they understand number, you look at them like, what? And the first thing that white people say is, oh my, you're so articulate. So we have been conditioned in all of these ways to deny our blackness. So when you have this man, this black man, who decides unapologetically to be as black as he can be, as black as he wants to be, why aren't black people celebrated? Why aren't we excited about it? I'm not excited that he left Jackson State. I'm not excited about the way that this looks. I'm not excited about the fact that you act like Deion Sanders coach prime time. You act like being at this PWI is somehow better than being at the historically black university. I'm not excited about that, but I am excited that he knows how to say, I'm black and I'm proud. Virgil Miller. Virgil Miller. I have forgot to tell y'all this story about Virgil Miller. Oh my goodness, I have been forgetting. Y'all, please let me tell it right now. I digress, but I need to digress. Virgil Miller showed up at my mama's In and Out with Tea. You know how monthly we meet together at the sanctuary right here on 16th Street, and we play cards, we play spades, and there are other games that you can play. You know, you can do whatever you want to do, but she's gonna play spades, and so she's the queen. So she sits there, and even if we lose, she sits there and she plays. Now, the first time we had the event, my mama and we ran that table for the first hour and a half. I know we did not move. Me and my mama, we were partners, and we were doing it. We were doing it. And the second time, we expected to do the same thing, right? We sat there. Everybody know we finna run this table, but we lost on the first hand. I'm like, what? So I got up, she sat down. So she had multiple partners, and she was winning with all the partners that she would have. She would win more than one game. And I'm like, T, wait a minute, what's up? We didn't win at all. Virgil Miller comes into the space. He comes into the space and starts talking cash money. I heard that this way y'all play. I heard it. So I want to see who the card players. I want to see the card players. So he sits down against my mom. And he begins to, he and his partner are winning. They start winning. So he started talking even more. I thought you said your mama could play. I thought you said y'all was Tony talking about y'all some card shots. I want to know I need some card players. Wait, your mama ain't doing nothing. I was like, wait a minute. Like, man, not talking junk to my mama. So I was on the other end of the table, and we were playing bid whist. So you had spades on this end, you had bid whist on the other end. In the middle, you had people playing Family Feud, playing chess, playing checkers. Like it was just a party. And so I said, look, so Tony was my partner on bid whist. He probably he not here to get mad at me, but he was like, he would pass all of his bids. He would pass. So I had no information. I didn't know if he was going uptown. I didn't know if he had a joker. I didn't know anything because he kept passing. And so I was already infuriated. Like, what? Play the game when you're not giving me any information. So we lost our hand, of course. And I was like, I need to lose anyway. Let me go get at this table with my mama against Virgil Miller. He acted like he was ready to go. You ain't going nowhere. You finna sit it. All that noise you talking about my mama while I'm on the other end of the table. And needless to say, me and my mama whooped up on his head. It was so much fun. But Virgil Miller had come to another event that I was doing in the sanctuary, and I asked people what was their favorite song, and he said, I'm Black and I'm Proud. So he remembers when that song came out, and he remembers the impact of it in his body. He remembered how it changed the way he walked. He remembered how he straightened up a little bit, his shoulders squared a little bit more, because it was something about that mantra, something about allowing it to penetrate, allowing us to realize and recognize, yes, there is divinity in this blackness. Yes, I am somebody in this blackness. And if that is what Prime Time, Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. If we can learn anything, let's celebrate that. Let's still have the conversations that we need to have about his anti-Black sentiment as it relates to him leaving the HBCU because he feels like it's better. He's been elevated to the PWI. Yes, let's have that conversation, but let's not denigrate him for choosing not to be more white. Let's not castrate him. That's basically what some people are doing because he dares to say, I ain't about to code switch for you. I ain't got to code switch for you. I don't have to become any closer. I don't have to be nothing like. I can be who I am, and that is okay. Sometimes my mom has said that there have been people in my life who just want to ride my coattails. She said they see you soaring and they just want to ride them. In this case, I think that is let's ride the coattail of Blackness. Let's be invigorated by this example of what it means to be unapologetic. Let's try it on. Go to work tomorrow. Go to church tomorrow. I don't know whatever space you're going to be in, and let your Blackness shine. See do you even know what your Blackness feels like? Do you even know what your own voice sounds like? Or are you still using the voice your mama taught you when you were little because she thought it was going to grant you some respect for white people's spaces? Are you still using that voice? Are you changing your behavior when white people come up? Are you choosing not to patronize Black restaurants because folks done told you that we don't do right? We not good business folks. What is it about your own Blackness that you are denying as you continue to talk bad about Deion Sanders for his audacity not to dim his Black shine? And I'm asking myself that. Am I code switching still? I know I did it for years and years and years and years. But when I was a pastor in Gulfport, Mississippi City United Methodist Church on Courthouse Road. I was trying to think of the name of the street on Courthouse Road, right? Just right down from the beach. You could see the beach from my office. As a matter of fact, I could preach in the sanctuary and look out the window and see the beach. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I used to do the sunrise service. I would preach the sunrise service on Resurrection Sunday. And that was perhaps the most titillating theological experience ever, because there was a retired Navy person in the congregation who would always do the time. He would time my sermon. He would say, at such and such a clock, you need to, this is when the sun is going to rise. So whatever you're going to say, this is the time. And he would sit right in front of me because we had these cues. He would sit right in front of me. And so at that moment, because the sun would be coming up at my back, and so at that moment, I would turn and I would say some fabulously theologically profound statement about us rising, praising the rising of the sun, God's son, as we watch the sun rise. And so it was clockwork. And then we would just stop and watch the sun break through. It was just amazing. And I know for a fact that if I understood my Blackness then the way that I do now, I wouldn't have made it 5 years at that church. I don't even think I would have gotten appointed. I got appointed because I was the right kind of Black person. Because I could talk and if they closed their eyes, they thought I was one of them. Yeah. So I have to continue to ask myself, how much of yourself, your Black self, do you deny every day? Sometimes because you're not even paying attention, because it's so deeply rooted, this need to be as close to whiteness as possible, because you've been taught and you believed, you have internalized that that's our ticket out. It's not. In fact, that's our ticket in to stay in bondage. Mhm. The way out is to know thyself, to know thy blackness and to love it and to appreciate it and to put it on display every chance that you get. I'm talking about the blackness that makes us the kings and queens that we always have been. I ain't talking about the blackness that somebody gonna say. I can just hear somebody now talking about, are you talking about the blackness where we kill each other? Well, clearly I'm not talking about that. But I'm also clear that Black people are not the only people that kill people that look like them. Ain't no such thing as black on black crime. People kill in proximity. So wherever you are, whoever around you, that's who you're gonna kill. that's just big fact. So of course I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you think about the history of Blackness in the world, when you think about being a descendant of people who were able to withstand being kidnapped and captured from their own homes, and then held in the bottom, in the belly of a ship, shackled to each other, even when people were dying beside them. People who were willing to say, I'm going to throw my own self over because I refuse whatever this uncertainty is that awaits me. I refuse to be a part of it. I'm going to throw my own self. I'm brave enough to do that. While the others who said, I'm going to weather this storm because we don't know what the end is going to be, not knowing what awaited them. People that built this country. People who loved and laughed in the midst of it all, who fought for their children, who are still who died looking for them. Still trying to bring that kind of tenacity, that kind of strength, that kind of courage, that kind of willpower, that kind of faith, that kind of holiness, that kind of sacredness. I carry it in my blood and I'm glad about it. I ain't gonna deny it because somebody said it ain't cute to wear shades when you talk to grown people. Why? Who said that? Who made up these rules? So yes, there is a way that we can be human with each other. It ain't got nothing to do with whether or not I'm wearing shades. See, you spending your time talking about whether or not Deion Sanders got on shades. How about you spend your time talking about what they teaching your children in school? How about spending time thinking about the fact that we don't own nothing as Black people? Nothing. Think about the fact that we're not educated now. Let's talk about that. Instead of some shades and a hat. You have been listening to Community Voices. This was a pre-recorded show, so the phone lines have not been open. Thank you so much for joining us. Tony and I should be in the station together, in the studio together on Thursday for the workplace. I don't know what's going to happen because I told you I'm in the hospital with my mom. So I didn't even tell y'all why. Now I'm all out of time. But we should be right back here for the workplace on Thursday at 9 a.m. Tony is the host of that show and I sit as his co-host. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but we shall see. But thank you all for being present with us in this space. This is KABF, where we are the voice of the people. And this is Denise, the Reverend right here as your host always. Sawubona to you. I want us to, as Black folks, to live into our Blackness as we interact with other people, regardless of their identities, human to human. So that's all the fight is about, making sure that we treat each other as humans. And my humanity is not tied up in my shades or my hat. My humanity is not bound up in how white I sound. I'm Black. And I'm proud, and I'm human, and I demand to be treated as such. And you go out and demand it too. See y'all later. Bye.